Hello and welcome to another coloring video. Right off the bat, this one's going to be a little different. I had to split this into two parts, as even after not even halfway through, we were already reaching that 30-minute mark, and I figured it'd be better to split it into two parts, so that way you don't have like an hour-long video of just me babbling about my art or something. Part 2 will be coming out next week. So today is Monday the 9th, and then next Monday, Part 2 will come out. So look forward to that. Today, I will be drawing another addition to my Firestrike series. Firestrike is a military organization slash special ops group that I created a couple of years ago now, and I drew this cool looking guy with like a trench coat and like a kind of Dead Spacey kind of helmet and some like machine gun thing, and I just had him like walking away from an explosion. That was it. It was just like, I don't really have a story there. I drew a couple other characters and people that I thought maybe in this world, but for the most part it's just like a loose idea. And for this drawing, it was one of those, I was walking around at work, and just suddenly, like, my brain, like, clicked, and it was just like, hey, what if I had my Firestrike guy standing, looking down an alley, like, or, like, a street of, like, a bombed-out, like, cityscape, with, like, the cool clouds in the background and everything, and just kind of, he's a little disgruntled, and I was like, that's perfect, let's draw that. And then it's like, so I drew the character, and then I was just like, you know, I've never drawn a cityscape before. And I started drawing a little bit, and nothing was really coming to me, and I was just like, you know what, I'm erasing a lot. It'd probably be easier to draw this, like, the cityscape in, like, the computer, rather than trying to, like, draw it on paper first. And so that's what I did. I ported just the character into the computer, made a size for the background and everything that I wanted, and then for about an hour or so I just kind of played around with perspective and creating like buildings and so many windows and just creating all these little details that I was adding in. But yeah, this is different from my normal drawings, and the fact that, like I said, the only thing that I drew was the character itself. Normally, when I'm drawing, I draw everything that is going to be in the picture. Obviously, I change a couple of details when coloring it in, but for the most part, I do try to keep it focused mostly on what I can draw. Like if there's a bookshelf or a wardrobe or a table or a couch, I usually try to put that into the image because that's an important part of the image. It's like, even if you were just looking at the drawing in my hand, I wanted you to be able to get that even if it wasn't fully colored. But with this one, again, I have never drawn a cityscape, so it was one of those, I didn't really know where I wanted to go, and I was just drawing and erasing and a lot, and I was like, you know, I could do all the same thing in the computer, and then I don't have to worry about erasing lines and ripping the page by accident, or possibly like losing all this progress. So I was like, I can just sit and play around with this in the computer, and it worked pretty well. I was able to get a lot of straighter lines for the buildings and able to kind of visualize what I was trying to do. Obviously, it doesn't look like perfect. It's not an actual city, and it just kind of looks like 4 random buildings just strewn about. But then again, I was thinking, this is a bombed out street. It's not like, and he's kind of at a strange perspective. It's one of those, like, I don't really know, like, how to explain it, but I do believe it ended up coming out okay. And I'm pretty happy with how the end result looks, and at the end of part 2, you'll definitely be able to see that. And it does end up looking, like once it's fully colored in, it does end up looking pretty good. It has all the elements there that I'm trying to convey, of just this character standing, looking down the street, just looking up a little bit to the sky, and just kind of like a, how did we get here? Look what the world used to be. Like, it's the shattered remains of the past. So I'm going to dive in a little bit more about what I'm drawing specifically. As I alluded to a little bit before, this is my character that I created for just a story that I had. It's not really any one story, it just kind of represents like a bunch of stories. However, I do have a legitimate idea for this character. This character is going to be a commander of sorts, like the leader of a special ops group of elite warriors that, like, basically once the regular military fails, these guys go in and they don't fail. That's kind of where I was going with it. But essentially, the idea I have for this character, and like the stories related to him, is that some kind of enemy is attacking, whether it's like, you know, another group of humans, or aliens, or like zombies, or something. There's some kind of enemy. I haven't, like, I'm usually leaning toward aliens, like aliens came down, and this is like, he's part of humanity's like last ditch effort. So his squadron of like just like the really elite of the elite is completely tasked with basically the survival of humanity. Actually, I think I wrote that down. So this is something that I wrote down for a story idea related to this. I haven't read this in a while since I took the screen cap, so this will be interesting. So I said, I think a combo of expendable style military unit during an alien invasion could work really well. And the aliens released a chemical agent that turns people into zombie-like creatures, thus leading to us needing helmets with respirators. Apparently that's all I wrote, and I thought that was a good enough story idea just to take a screen cap of that. However, let me expand upon that, because again, I haven't read that in a while, so I kind of forgot some of the ideas behind that, but that actually brings up a good point. So, like I said, aliens or zombies or other humans, well, now that combines all three of those, because there's the aliens that are the actual enemy, and they have the technological superiority. They are attacking from, like, above. They have, basically, the only thing they need Earth for is to be, like, eradicated of all life so they can do whatever they want. Or maybe they're trying to enslave us or something. I'm sure there's endless ways I could spin that story. Then you have the chemical agent, like I said. They're releasing some kind of chemical into the atmosphere or something that turns people who breathe it into zombies. So then you have a zombie aspect of the story of not only do you have these aliens you have to fight off, like an elite military group of aliens, but now you have these like crazy zombie savages things like popping up all over the place. Like, so it's like, you know, you're fighting off the aliens and then suddenly these zombies just start swarming out of the like ground and like attacking you from all sides. And they're easy to kill because you just have to, like, you know, fire at them. But it then goes into that whole, like, are we just wasting our ammo? Because these things just keep coming. There's probably, like, billions of these things just everywhere. And it's like, is it better to fight them or just leave them? Do we have an option to just, like, ignore them? Or is it, like, how close are they to actually defeating us? Are they helping the aliens? Or are they just mindless beasts that attack anything that moves? And that goes into that whole, like, thing. And then again, with the other humans, you could have warring factions within, like, of how we want to deal with things, and so you maybe have your main faction in the beginning of this, like, not the story, but the beginning of the lore. You have your main faction, and then, like, after all this stuff goes down, it just splits into splinter cells, and you have a bunch of people all, like, warring to see who's gonna be the one to, like, use their plan to defeat the aliens. Meanwhile, the aliens are just sitting back and being like, hey, we're gonna kill as much as you can, but you guys are gonna basically kill yourselves. I really do think that adds a lot to this, like, just one character that I've drawn, like, maybe 2 or 3 times, and all of that stems from just what, like, anyone thinks it could be. Because right now, I haven't written any stories for this. It's just a couple of images. That we have one where he's poorly drawn. I think I don't ever think I colored that one. It's like the original concept art where he has like a weird, like, lumpy hand. Then I had the redefined one that I released, the one where he's walking away from the explosion, and now I have this one that I released. So it's like, between those, and it's all the same character, and again, there are a couple of other characters that I've drawn, but they're not necessarily, like, all in the same world. It was just kind of like wouldn't it be cool if I drew in this style, and some of them came out better than others. So it's more, like, right now, there's only 3 real images, and they're all of the same character, this commander guy, and I honestly think that it has way more potential than even I know. And it's like, who knows? Maybe, like, someone else will take over and just write this story. Probably not. I mean, I'll probably get around to it eventually, if I ever have free time again. So for this project, I wasn't particularly worried about the shakiness of my lines. Or the, like, sometimes when you take a day or 2 in between, or in this case, couple weeks in between, when you export constantly, like, the next time you open it up, you have a bunch of, like, little, like, specks everywhere, because it's, like, it JPEGs itself. And that's just because I didn't finish it all in one day. However, with this project, I wasn't too concerned about that, because this isn't a perfect world. Yeah, the buildings are a little, wiggly in terms of the lines, and, his clothes aren't exactly straight and nice and pressed, but it's like, it fits the theme a little. It's like, he's in this world that is completely been, like, bombed out, and it's just destroyed, and yeah, he didn't have time to sit there, like, in the apocalypse, to sit there and iron his jacket, make sure it's nice and pristine and clean. Was thinking I was going to go back and, like, add, like, maybe, like, some splashes of dirt, or maybe even blood or something on him, but I was like, well, no, he does wash his uniform, but it's like, it's just one of those things I decided to do where he isn't, like, pristine, and the buildings in the background, they aren't like these nice architectural structures that are perfectly uniform and matching with each other. And yeah, the buildings are a little off-kilter, and it's like, well, yeah, the ground's probably, like, shifted beneath them, and it's like, it ended up working more to my style, where it's like, if I had tried to draw him standing, like, a clean, pristine character standing next to these, mirror-like, shimmering buildings, that probably wouldn't have worked with my current art style, because I've talked about this before. I draw on my computer with a trackpad because I haven't invested any money in a drawing tablet yet. And honestly, I feel like it would be more detrimental to my style for this picture to have tried to get these lines perfectly, like, aligned with one another. In addition to every time I open up this program, it, like some things is just like the pixelation just happens, and it's like, well, he's not, it's a character in an unperfect world. It happens. So one of the elements of the background was all these windows that you see, like, everywhere, and you see me working on constantly. And these windows were a challenge, because first off, to create them, I basically drew a rough, kind of like weird, like pointed away from you rectangle, like kind of like get that perspective trick. And then I just copied that and duplicated it and filled up the whole side of a building with them. And then I just, filled up another building, saw that the windows, as they got closer, were too small, so I, just increased the size of them, proportionally. Copied that, made a whole bunch of copies of that. And then I did the same thing for the middle building. I just kind of, brought it in between. And they came out, the windows, once they're fully colored, came out alright. And I wanted to show in the picture that a lot of these windows are all smashed out, and it's they're not full windows. And the glass door is the same, where it's has those pieces missing, and it's all smashed out and whatnot. But man, these windows were a lot more time consuming than I would have thought. Because it's with a character, you have a finite space you're doing, and then obviously with a background, you have much more of a wide open space you have to take into consideration. And man, those windows just ate up so much of my time. Most of the video you're watching right now is me coloring in these windows. I didn't know when I was making them that the windows were going to be that much of a pain, but I was it does fit. I'm sitting there well, why would you have these big tall buildings with no windows? And so I was well, I'm in it to win it now. I gotta make it work. Other elements of the background, you'll see there's in the foreground, there's a little hill that's covering the bottom of the character's feet. And that was because, again, I was struggling with a little bit with that, perspective, even when I was drawing it on paper, where it's I wanted to show the full boots that he was wearing, but I was it just looks weird from this angle. So I was oh, I know, he'll do the artist trick of making a slight little raise in the ground that covers his feet, so it's oh, his feet are there, trust me, I'm an artist. But and then yeah, it kind of has a little hill looking way of going down the street. Typically when I work on a project, even one of this scale, I try to get it done and working and basically get it done within a couple days, maybe even a week or two. This project is by far one of the biggest ones I've worked on thus far. Not even necessarily in scale, just in terms of detail and time that I spent on this. And a lot of that was, there was a couple of weeks in between where I didn't even look at this project. It was one of those, I had the first 2 parts recorded within 2 days of each other, and each part was an hour recording that I had to then condense down. By the time I got to the third part, it had been at least 2 weeks before I even opened the project again. Because what kept happening is, you'd open the project, see how little you've actually refined and colored, and see how much more you had to go. And it's just one of those man, I can't even look at you right now. You have so much more to do. And then obviously I, stopped procrastinating, and I got down to work, and I actually finished the project. And it took another couple of hours over the course of another couple of weeks, but it's it wasn't that detrimental. It's it was one of those, once I got done, it was well, why did I waste so much time? I could have been done with this a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or a month ago. But yeah, in terms of size of project, this is one of those projects that was more background-centric than foreground-centric. Yes, the character is the main focus, and it is him, looking down the street. However, a lot more time was spent on the backgrounds and making these buildings actually look like potential buildings in the distance, rather than just random blocks of, gray. And again, this whole project, except for the character, was all created digitally in the computer. The only thing I had drawn out by hand was this character. And that is a very different thing for me, because I draw a lot of things by hand. Until I have a drawing tablet, drawing on the computer just is going to remain one of those challenging things, because with my hand, I know how to get that right curve, or how to get certain things to look like get the perspective right and get other things all set. But on the computer, when I'm only coloring with a trackpad, I'm a little limited by how much I can actually articulate my fingers and how good the software is at picking up those minute details. Because sometimes, like I've explained before, you end up trying to draw like a slightly curved line and it ends up being completely straight. Or you try to draw a straight line, but then your finger twitches just enough to like completely like make it like kind of shaky and jagged, and you're like, that's not what I want. And it's like, but it's not the computer's fault. It's not necessarily your fault. It's just you're using the wrong tools on the wrong job. That'd be like showing up to rewire someone's house and you have nothing but stuff for plumbing, and it's like, you're sitting there like, well, I don't see any water running through your electric stuff. Well, no. One of the things that I tried to do with the windows is I tried to have them all be different. I tried not to copy any shapes, and it's like have each window kind of be different, like broken in a different pattern. And it does come out pretty well. However, some of these like window pieces, it looks more like black smudges on some windows instead of actual cracks in the window itself. I could have done a lot more to make it look like, but then that would just go into a lot of staring into these like windows and like trying to draw like depth to them, and I was already spending a lot of time on these windows, and I was like, I don't need to be spending any more time on these windows. But I did try to get them all to be different, like cutouts of like what glass has been broken where. And it did work to a degree, but for the most part, there are some patterns that end up like copying themselves. Like you'll see a lot of times there's either a big piece missing or a little piece missing, or there's like similar shapes. Some are more jagged, some are more smooth. One of the things I wanted to do to make it show that it was broken and not just weird smudges is to actually go in and like draw like little spider cracks like on the glass, like spider web cracks in the glass. But then again, that would have just taken way more time, and I tried it a couple of times, but it just never came out looking right, and it always just looked really weird, and I was just like, nah, I'm just wasting too much time on these windows. The main focus is the character, and I was like, I want the background to be there to supplement the character, but the character is the main focus of this picture. In regards to the perspective, again, it was difficult to make these buildings look big, but in the distance, because again, it is one of those, yeah, I know what buildings look like, and then I start drawing, and I'm like, they look like big rectangles, right? Cool. I am pretty happy with how the backgrounds and everything ended up coming, and it's definitely far from perfect, but it's something that I could make, and it's something that I really enjoy. And once the final product comes out next week, I really think you guys are going to probably enjoy that. So, again, thank you all so much for watching. This will be a two-parter, like I said at the beginning and in the middle, and now again. And the second part will be coming out next week. I hope it's somewhat interesting just to like hear me ramble while art flies past me in the background. But let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.